All right, let's move on to another game. This game here is Grandmaster Erenburg as white against Grandmaster Dkurabek, the real boy, as black. And this game here not only features multiple highlights, it also is just instructive and fantastic and a candidate for best game of the whole PCL season so far. So let's see it now that I've promised you so much. Knight e2, idea bishop to f4, countering this queen. The queen came here to stop bishop f4, and knight e2 is to still put the bishop on what is one of the best dark square diagonals on the board right now. Bishop g4, this allows black to answer bishop f4 with either queen f4 or bishop e2. So traditionally, white played f3 in this position to break up the bishop's hidden attack on the queen and allow white to play, bishop f4, knight f4 next. But obviously f3 has some price as well. Well, you can also castle first, and after e6 here, f3 can be played. But Erenburg played a move which is very tricky and a little bit new or different, which is to play queen e1 first. But actually, white might still want to play f3 in a moment. And part of the idea can be shown in a moment. Real boy played bishop d6. And here, actually, white could consider f3. Bishop h2 check, king h1. Where does this bishop go? Right? If it comes to f5, then one way to win for white is to trade, play knight f4, check. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't go to f4 because that allows g5. My apologies. Let's go knight g3, check. And after black keeps the king out of check, white can capture this piece, right? Because the knights block the queen. And now white's up a piece. If I'd gone to f4 with the knight, black would have g5 here, sort of uncomfortably winning the piece back. Still with a good position for white, perhaps, but not winning a piece, which was my point. So, and then on bishop h5, white has the move queen h4, attacking the bishops. And yeah, could be a problem for black, right? So f3 is quite interesting move for white here as well. But in the game, Erenburg goes for knight to g3. So this knight is obviously taking away some of the main options of this bishop. It's also sheltering the h2 pawn. And potentially white wants to play f3 next move, right? Black played knight f6, and white actually did not play f3. But we could imagine what an f3 move might look like, right? Bishop takes, queen takes, pawn takes, bishop h5. This could be pleasant for white, who takes over control over this diagonal, right? It's possible. Could have done it. Something might have happened next. White went for f4. So now he's trying to block out the queen and bishop by getting his own bishop and rook involved in controlling this diagonal. If he locks those pieces out, then this bishop is going to be kind of stranded over here on this side of the board. He's going to have h3 next move. We don't know where the bishop's going to go. f5 is not going to be good. Even if the king isn't on e8, if the king castles somewhere. Right, I mean, it's still going to lose a pawn, right? And then the alternative will be coming this way. And there's different things that could happen, but white might even do something as simple as this. And g4, g5. Looking immediately at this king side, or he could develop pieces from this position here. Knight d2, headed to f3, and then e5 or g5, right? And he's gotten some space. Uncontested bishop, since the black light square bishop's not there to block it on g6 or f5 at some point, and his queen in position for an attack. So a lot of good stuff there achieved by white. So after f4, Dkurabek had to do some soul searching. How was he going to answer h3? How was he going to, answer white's idea here? And after a while, he decides to play h5, aggressively fighting for space and territory on this side of the board. After h3 by white, he plays h4 himself. And now white consider hg4. He would get his piece back. White takes here, winning a pawn and defending f4 and g4. But what Dkurabek has here is the open h file for one pawn and the next move g5, I'm pretty sure. Puts a lot of pressure on this f4 pawn. Black may not win the f4 pawn, but the pawn can't avoid trading because of this hidden attack of the bishop on the queen. So black's going to be able to open a second file. So after g5, he might be happy to just castle queenside, play rook to g8, and then at some point gf4 and take on g4 and stuff. He also has ideas like rook to h4 to g4. So I'm certain that this is a great position. Well, reasonably certain this is a great position for black as well. So Erenburg elects to retreat the knight, and now the bishop on g4 has to retreat. Black's not ready to sack a piece yet, but that does sack this pawn on h4. So his reaction to this idea of knight g3 and h3 was to play h5, h4, and then lose the pawn that he spent 2 moves developing. But the point is, once the developed pawn is gone, this rook is developed. And all he has to do is defend it by castling queenside for this rook to suddenly be involved. Still, this is a sort of speculative pawn sack, right? This is just sacking a pawn because you want an open file on the side of the board where the opponent's king is. Okay, so far so good. The queen moves out of the way. Now that the rook's defended, there's ideas like bishop e2 or other stuff maybe, but, coming to a light square with the bishop and winning stuff. So he gets the queen out of the way, and here Dkurabek plays another fantastic move. He just lets it rip, right? He's just like, here, another pawn. Take it, have it, please, go. Yeah, this is pretty intense. Erenburg ends up taking the pawn. You can also calculate the move f5 instead, but that still pries open this diagonal, even if not the g file just yet. Yeah, I mean, from this position, there are various things black can do. Including some version of e5 and g4, but probably he'll throw in bishop h2 check first, putting the king on this awkward square, blocking in his own knight and rook further. And now, yes, you could play e5, you could play g4, you could just put a rook on the e file and say, do you really want to trade these pawns? Well, you don't have a choice anymore, do you? And this king is going to be pretty much blocked out. Trapped, cut off before he can run away, like in the last example we saw, right? Let's cut off his escape route before we play g4, g3 check. Let's make sure it's mate. So that's not going to be good for white either. And there's not really a good way to defend this. I mean, you can play a move like g3, but it doesn't really seem to help, does it? Oh, actually, maybe this would be imprecise because of this move, so maybe it would encourage black to at least trade the pawn once and develop white's piece. And that gets something going for white, I suppose. And yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe g3 was just as good as anything that happened in the game. Black could play rook to d to g8 here. He could also maybe play e5. It would be weird after bishop g5. Looking to explode even more stuff. Yeah, my instinct is this g3 might actually be slightly better than what he did in the game, just because in the game he's really not getting his pieces out, and this, just seeing one piece come out for white already tells my instincts that this is a somewhat better way to go. So g3, perhaps a better defensive option for white early on in this game. Pawn was taken, king was forced out. The white pieces are going to remain awkward from here on out. How should black continue here, though? Obviously, white's pieces are not arranged in like correct chess fashion. It looks more like Fisher Random Chess on drugs or something like that, right? So obviously white's got some problems. But how do you pursue a position like this? Black's already down 2 pawns. White might have an idea. If you don't play incisively, white's going to have the basic idea of bringing out his pieces, also potentially a specific idea of g3 and king to g2 here. Disrupting this bishop and queen's coordination, maybe winning a piece, and maybe making some use of the knight on h1. Oddly enough, by blocking its own square with another pawn. So how do you play a position like this as black? You know, do you play rook to g8? Do you play e5? What do you do? Well, if you said e5, I'm a fan of yours because, yeah, the pawn's threatening your knight, but whatever. E5 is the right spirit, at least. Trying to open the e file, just trying to entrap this king, open up lines in general to explode things, and also cutting off this king because you want to catch him. Feels very right. That said, Real Boy had a very strong and simple solution here, which is to play knight e4 check. This also forces more lines open, and it doesn't yet sack a piece. It only sacks a pawn, right? So White's going to have to capture that piece. I mean, going to have to capture that piece in the sense that if he doesn't capture this piece, he plays king e3, where's his king ever going to go, right? The knight's covering his only escape route. And how strong is this piece? You can't just leave it here and, you know, think that you're somehow going to play this position as white, right? And now black will play e5, trying to open the e file, most likely. Anyway, this knight can't be tolerated. White takes it, and then grabs another pawn. Yeah, any moment where you grab a pawn stands out as a moment where potentially we could consider some other move for white. The first move we would consider g3 with this king g2 plan. There's bishop f3 for black, and then we see that this plan didn't work. There's no king g2 coming, and oddly enough, black's going to capture probably this abysmal piece on h1 in order to break through on g3. And he's not going to catch the king in the next two moves, but instead the queen. So not really a good option to play g3. You know, and not clear what a good developing move for white would be given the circumstances. You know, maybe you consider bishop e3, defending this pawn, but that takes away your king's, sorry, this bishop's here, so that takes away your king's only way to sort of move out of the affected area. And, you know, different things black can do from this position. One might be f5, f4. And, you know, taking on f6 is going to be even worse than letting that pawn come in for a touchdown. Anyway, it's a pretty dire situation for white. He took on e4, and from here on, it's just a matter of finding the best attacking moves for black. Black has revealed a great concept, sacking 3 pawns, driving the king out. But how do you pursue this kind of position? What do you think the best moves are? Here, Dkurabek plays bishop g6. Tempo on the queen. Opens up the rook if needed to come down here. Queen moves away, and note she moves to a square that doesn't allow e5. So black plays queen b6. And the plan is to just sack on d4, takes, bring in the rook, attacking the queen, and just blow everything open. There's really going to be nowhere to run once the d file's open and the bishop's got the king trapped from this side. White would love to attack this bishop with rook h1 or something, but the knight's trapped, so no rook h1. And, yeah, I mean, presumably at this point the best defense from white would be to play bishop e3, defending d4, even though queen b6 had in mind that black could also take here, here, and take here. And now, you know, this pawn's going to drop as well to knight d4. But it's got to be better to, like, bring out these pieces than to not bring them out. It just gives you some practical chance of your opponent blundering, although having played these positions several times as white in the King's Gambit, these wandering king through the center positions, I have not really had much luck. I have not, and the luck is in having your opponent blunder, right? I've not had much luck in seeing like IMs or GMs blunder in positions like this as black. They tend to put you away pretty good. So yeah, so white moved the king off of the diagonal with the queen. But Dkurabek just takes on d4 anyway. Brings the rook in. Queen f3. All right. How do you continue this position? So there's a number of moves that you could have considered, and I'll give you some credit for thinking of any of these moves. One is rook to d8, coming to the open file to support that rook. Another move would be rook to h4, trying to bring the second rook to e4. Certainly a powerful idea. And what you need to consider there is g4 by white, trying to keep that rook from getting through. Similarly, there's the idea of bishop h5, trying to play rook d1 checkmate. And again, if you wanted to play bishop h5, sure, fine, but hopefully you took into account this move g4 and had some kind of idea of what you wanted to do next in case of that. But in the game, Dkurabek's choice is to play rook e4 check when the bishop can't come to e3. Okay, so that option is gone now because, well, the queen's on it, and that wins white's queen. So that option is gone, and then he'll put the other rook on d8 instead of trying to bring this rook to e4. And this is definitely the cleanest option for black, because now rook d8 comes. The king still can't run because the bishop's here waiting for him, and this is double check, checkmate. Pretty gory stuff here. If you don't like violence, oops, you shouldn't have watched this video. So knight d2 is played, and now he wants to open up this bishop to c2, so he moves the rook off of e4. Defended by the queen, kicks this queen. Always tempo moves, okay? Sometimes there's a quiet move, and that's special and amazing, but in general, when you're playing these positions, 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, you're playing a lot of like forcing moves where you're not giving white time, or whoever's defending time, to play defensive ideas, like knight f2, like rook f2. I don't know what else white would do to defend here. Doesn't have a lot of great moves. But in any case, you don't give him that. Attacks this. And now he just plays queen c5, threatening checkmate on c2. There's no white piece that can do anything about it. So the queen sack comes. And a finishing touch, bishop f4 with the idea of rook d2. Bishop d2, queen d2 mate. And here it's clear enough that black is finishing the game off in a moment, and white resigned. So, stunning, stellar, fantastic, right? The setup on all those pawn sacks, h5, h4, g5, knight e4, this was just a fantastic energy he played with. Very intuitive and evaluation-based as opposed to calculation. You can't see all of this. You can't see the variations that justify this attack at a point in the game where you're playing h5, h4. That's definitely based on, knowing that the h file is going to be worth something. And same with g5. He sees that if it's taken, he can get the white king out here. But, I mean, he can't calculate these variations. Same with knight e4. He can't calculate this stuff. He just knows, or thinks he knows, and turns out to be right in this case, that the white king is going to be too exposed. The white pieces are too awkward. He's proved correct. So I hope you enjoyed these lessons. There are other great lessons to be drawn from some of the games in the Pro Chess League this week, and I'm thinking of maybe making a Chuparadze video. So we'll see if that happens or not. But for now, I bid you a good day. Enjoy the chess. See you next week. Keep in mind that live games from the PCL this week will be played on Monday and Tuesday instead of the normal Tuesday and Thursday slot. So there's not long to wait. There will be action for 7 to 8 hours of live rapid chess on Monday and Tuesday this week. If you want to see standings, pairings, matchups, and all that, those are at prochessleague.com. And you can see who's playing. Lineups will be out sometime on Saturday, so you can see which top 10 and top 20 players, or dark horses like Anna Sargsyan and Giga Chuparadze, which players you've got your eye on that you want to follow. You can see who's playing this week. All right, take care, everybody.